Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are, and welcome to On the Edge. I am your host, Dave Bergstein, and today I have another outstanding guest and someone who is very well known in the client accounting or client advisory services space, Christine Triantos. I welcome you. You're the co-founder of Infinite Advisors, I believe, and you're in the 30 plus most influential client advisory services people, according to David Cristello of Jetpack Services. Let me welcome you. How are you doing today?
Thank you, David. I'm doing so well. I feel like you're an official announcer, like I'm at a baseball game.
Well, I'm going to throw the first pitch in a second. As I said, you're a co-founder of Infinite Advisors. It sort of sounds like BotKeeper Infinite. I got to put in a plug for our sponsor of On the Edge. They went to BotKeeper Infinite because they've gone totally software, totally AI, and that changed it. But tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you've got a number of years experience. Starting, you're a CPA, and you were with. I'll let you tell us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so thank you. So I started with BDO, gosh, 28 years ago. And in 2002, our local partners bought the firm from BDO. So we became an alliance firm. And the only reason is because I've just been in every size firm, small, medium, and large. And then in 2020, BDO bought us back. And then I was the regional partner for our West region for the CAS team, and then also our national CAS technology team. And so that was great. Loved what I did, loved BDO. I also teach the CAS workshop for CPA.com. I've been doing that for the last 7-8 years and love doing that as well. And really just in that space, in that consulting space, talking to so many firms on a regular basis, I understand why it's overwhelming to stand up CAS practices, and there's just a lot, right? And so from beginning to end, so it's full-blown engagement letters from a CAS standpoint, to pricing, to proposals, to just everything, but the main crux of it to being the technology, because technology is just so overwhelming for people, especially in the CAS space, because it's just different from what we know, right? And there's 15, 20 products. And so we come in and we're able to help firms stand up their technology, either run it behind the scenes for them and or train their staff. And so it's going really, really well. But I since left BDO at the end of last year and started Infinite Advisors in this consulting space.
So you've been going strong for just about a year now. I'm looking at your website and I like what it says. You build, enhance, grow a client advisory practice with full service guidance. So since we're on the edge, and let's say, I know everybody's talking about client advisory services. Do you think you're going to see a lot more firms growing in the client advisory space than offering other services?
Absolutely. And we know that from, the benchmark survey that CPA.com does, that CAS is the fastest growing business line within public accounting firms, right? And so it's just so many firms trying to start it. Every firm is just in a different stage, right? They're either just starting it, they're trying to do it with shared staff, which actually doesn't work because it's a full-time practice, or they're up and running really, really well. So but yeah, people are just clamoring to stand up CAS if they haven't already. It's such a great business model, and it's year round. It's not seasonal as much as it is with audit and tax. And so it's a great business model, which then just catapults into that whole advisory service offerings that all firms are already in or trying to get into from the CAS space.
And that's what I like to hear. I'm going to ask a couple of questions, but I think it's all about the advisory service. And I'll ask you what you mean by advisory services in a second. But when you're helping a firm come up with a standardization in a tech stack, how do you go about it? And it's fine to name some tools that you're using. Do you say you got to choose one anchor accounting program or GL program and then build around? How do you do that?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of it, there's really there's so many products out there, right? Like you said, and so many new products coming to the market. But it really is about adapting quickly and pivoting, right, with products that are coming out. But starting with, what do you have in-house? What's your core business model? Do you have a strategic plan around that? Are you focusing on certain um, industry specializations that you're wanting to get into, then bringing the appropriate technology to the team and to the firm. But it's doing it in a way where it's not overwhelming, right? Where we can say, you know what, you probably do need these 10, 15, but you're not going to have to learn how to use them. We're going to stand it up for you behind the scenes. We're going to help you connect. We're going to make you look like a rock star with your clients, and you don't have to learn it out of the gate, but you will learn it as you start to edit and modify and, just go through the months with your clients. So it's just been really great. So we really just cater to each firm of what their needs are, because every firm, again, is at a different space. And so the larger ERP systems, they might not be ready for that yet. So, we come in, meet them where they are, figure out what they need. But in this CAS technology space, it's so exciting, I think. Because there are so many products that are just coming out all the time. And obviously you need to do your due diligence and, do they have their SOC 2, type 2 reports, they have SSO, what are your barriers to entry and what does that look like? And, have they worked through all the bugs? But at this point too, with a lot of the vendors, which is really great, they're just so open to saying, hey, can you help us? What are we missing? Right? What do we need? And so on that side with the vendors, we're just trying to say, hey, this is what you need to do to make your product better. Here's what you're missing the mark. And a lot of them are just so willing to do whatever the CAS community needs and adapt to that as well.
So let's say you go to a typical accounting firm. It's either going to have QBO, Xero, Intacct, NetSuite, whatever is a core product. So can you help them at this point be totally automated from transaction to GL, no matter which one of those anchor products they're using?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And really just get them to where they're comfortable. So even with each of those products too, is what do you need as third party, software applications as add-ons that maybe you think you need to move to a different level, but you actually really don't, right? And let's just make it easy. What is it that you're trying to achieve and attain? Because in all products, it doesn't matter where you move to, right? You're like, okay, I need this, and then you move to it, and you're like, now I just lost what I had in that product that I went away from. And so it's really just talking through, tell me what your needs are, because there's so many products out there, and they're great, but they're all tailored and do different things, right? And so it's really understanding what each firm is looking to do and what they're scaling to do, right? What's your growth plan? Where do you want to go? What capacity do you have? What internal team members do you have? Who's going to learn this? Who's going to support it? And does that really fit? And if it doesn't fit, we need to, stick with the simple and do third-party add-ons as well.
So do you see the future being, does it have to be CPAs or accountants with the tech stack, or can it be anybody with the tech stack?
Anybody with the tech stack. I mean, which opens up the realm, I always say we're all fishing out of the same pond for the accountants, right? I mean, and the pond's not huge. But when it comes to the technology, it really opens the door for people that just fully understand systems, right? Like some of our best tech people are not accountants. They understand CSVs and imports and integrations and all of these things, but they don't need to know accounting, right? And so I think that that's really important, because it's always kind of getting into what I always say is this highest and best use too. And the accountants don't always have time or the desire, right? They're like, I don't want to learn that. I don't want to know that. I want to do what I do really, really well. How can I get the data out of here? How can I take this data and interpret it to my clients and have it be super valuable? And so, yeah, I think opening that door for people that are not CPAs, not accountants in that tech space is key.
So once you help them put the tech stack in place, I think that's where the fun starts, because now they're capturing the data. So you do the staff training and you do this supporting. What do you tell them to offer in the way of advisory services? What, we keep talking about client advisory service. We keep talking about building a tech stack. Well, the tech stack's for is bringing in the data.
Right.
Now, once you've trained someone to bring in the data, what do you tell them they should be offering or holding out as offerings to clients, just to get an idea of what the future is?
Yep. So I think, moving from that compliance, month-end close, basic kind of financial reporting, right, into what do your clients want to know and what do they need, right? And they really want to know proactively, obviously, where am I going to go? What decisions should I be making? What should I be thinking about that I'm not thinking about? And so using this technology to allow you to do that, because there are so many products out there that are doing consolidated reporting, combined reporting, cash flow analysis, budgeting, projections, all of the things that's really set there to say, okay, I'm going to present this to my client in a way that's going to allow them to make better decisions, and better decisions more, timely. And so I think where we've been all growing up, probably in public accounting firms, is that it takes so long to generally put that data together previously without software and technology. And so, we're all trying to recreate and reinvent the wheel and bring it in and make it look pretty and do all of these things, which now we don't need to do. So this is where we get to with firms to say, with your service offerings, you decide whether you want to invite the clients to the platform or not. Because if you don't, is this your secret sauce? And you're taking that data, right? And you're taking that, you're interpreting it and presenting it to the client, because like you just said, the data has to be accurate, right? If it's junk in, it's junk out. So obviously the data has to be accurate, what's going in. And then what's coming out of that is what you're able to relay to your client. There's a lot of AI in a lot of these products now. So what we say is, hey, all of the AI is so fantastic. However, you don't rely on it. Hold on one second. Sorry.
We can have the dogs. It doesn't matter. I know you got construction workers in your house, but this is why we're on the edge. So don't worry about it.
No. So it's really just taking all of that information and really relaying it over to the client. So, but it's just now that technology, you're just taking it, it creates it for you. It's linked, it's synced, it's taking all of that financial information and spitting out this, this data for you in reports that you wouldn't even believe are basically out of the box custom reports that are 15, 20 pages long, almost too much information, but you can then cookie cutter that to what you think your client wants and what service offerings you want to provide.
No, I think that's future. And again, I'm somewhat technologically inclined, but I don't want to know about technology. I want to help my clients. So when it comes to the offerings, are you advising, because it says, tech stack, client staffing, training, pricing, proposals. Are you proposing to your clients to, be more relationship with their clients, the CPAs or the accountant clients, to tell them, hey, we offer managerial services, where you offer CFO type services, will help you make decisions, and then letting them rely on software?
Yes, to a certain extent. I think, and we talk about this a lot with CPA.com, and they're helping to define it. When we talk about CFO level services, you have to be really careful with that in the CAS space, right? Because you don't want to hold yourself out as management, but you want to be able to know their business well enough to present your clients with multiple options that you say, okay, here's what we found.
The dog agrees.
And, here's what we found. What could you, use that information for to make those decisions? So, yeah, I mean, there's so much that you can do with this. And so with the service offerings, it just always caution people in the CFO space, just be careful. But from that standpoint, it's even just getting KPIs that are non-metric, even KPIs. Hey, in your industry space, it looks like you're collecting cash so much slower than your competitors. Let's look at your internal policies and what you have going there. So there's just a lot that we are just advising our firms on. Here are certain things that you could be offering to your clients. And when we talk about, CAS 1.0, CPA.com's CAS 1.0 to CAS 2.0, I think that there's a good middle ground, which is like a 1.5 of where it's not just the transactional and it's not all the way at the 2.0 trusted advisor, but there's this huge middle ground space that really needs that controller, CFO type person.
Right. No, I see that being the case. Actually, I'm old, but I'm young, even though you've only been in the business 23 years and you're 24 based on being a BDO. I'm at what you call level. I'm a believer in level 5 services, and I think everybody is looking. And this goes back to a person who's semi-retired from this. E.D. Osborne conducted a course, level 5 accounting, or level 5 is what you call it. And I think Jeannie Whitehouse does it. But that's what we're all aspiring to do. And you mentioned the cash flow, and I know there's tools out there you can use that'll help you tell your clients, hey, if you do this, you can get cash 5 days quicker or something along those lines. I'm assuming that's what you're doing with people when you're helping them with their processes of sending out invoices and reminders.
Exactly. And so, but it's being able to also identify and compare that to industry standards in their space too, right? Because they might not even know that. And it's not even something that's bad for them, but just to say, you know what, in comparison, you could be doing this. And then they're like, oh, okay, and so it's really just all of the advisory is the value add, right? It's all just defining that value of what you bring to the table for the client, because the compliance piece is now just a given, right? We know that that's there now.
Never going away. It's going to be there, but the future is what you're saying.
Exactly. It's telling your clients a story. What are we doing with this? Where are you telling them, how are you advising them? How are you bringing in the tax team from a tax planning perspective, consulting perspective, at year end to say, hey, normally maybe you buy these products in January, but from a tax standpoint, maybe that's something you want to think about before year end in December, and it's really just getting into their world. And also with clients, it's where do you want to be in 5-10 years? Are you wanting to sell your business? Do we need to get audit readiness, or are you operating in in the standard that you need to be for your industry? And so let's work on that to get you to where you need to be, right? So
I think you've cut out, but I can't tell for sure. But we're back. I think we're back. I think you're back now.
Those conversations, I always say, with your mid to large size leads, this is high level.
At high level.
Did I lose you? I can't hear you. Oh, there
you go. Okay, I think we're having some technical difficulties, but if you can hear me, Christine, give me a thumbs up. Okay. So let me ask you, when you're going into a firm now, and you're going into a lot of firms, or you're doing these workshops, are they all still focusing on their tech stacks, or are there firms that are really past 1.5 or 1? Are there firms that are offering advisory services and doing it successfully?
Yeah, there's a lot of firms doing it well. I think though in that 2.0 stage, there's a lot of firms doing it well, but that's not where the majority of firms are yet. I don't think, it's getting them to the 1.5 and saying, here's what you can do with the technology to get to the 2.0. And the 2.0 is really that high level CFO trusted advisor. You're getting into the M&A and, working with their, banks and just super high level, right? And so I think there are a lot of firms that are really doing that well, but there's not a lot of firms in that space at that highest 2.0 advisor level, is my take. I don't know if you've seen something different, but that's just my take.
No, I agree with you. The ones that are doing it are excelling at it because they're there. But I'd probably say 85% to 90% of the firms, and we've been talking about this for 5 years, so you started the Infinite Advisors just at the right time. There are a lot of firms that want to get to that space, and it's going to take time to do that. What are they doing? Do you recommend that they change their platforms that they're on, even though we're talking about picking a core, build off what they have rather than switching?
It really depends on kind of where they're at, but if they have a good core base of a platform, it's just adding. But I always say too, whatever platforms they're on, they still have to have something in place where they can adapt with the clients as they grow, right? One product isn't going to give you everything. You have to be able to offer something bigger, something larger for the growth of those clients, right? Without, there's always that fine line of not being software selection, but just saying, hey, here's what we know, here's what we specialize in, and we can grow with your company as well.
No, I see that. Again, I'm coming from a solo practitioner standpoint as opposed to a BDO alliance firm or a BDO firm. And smaller practitioners, they can focus on maybe one or two core applications. And it shouldn't be a zero and a QBO. It should be either a zero and a QBO with an Intact or a NetSuite, big and small. But they shouldn't be having two of the same level as far as I can see, because then they're diminishing their, I guess, expertness. Would you agree on that?
Christine, I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
You have to have a zero NetSuite solution, right?
So you got to go up.
No, I'm not on mute.
You got to go up and down.
No. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
You have to be able to offer both in all services, right? I mean, you have to have something, and that takes time, right? But that's where your strategic plan comes in, because you have to offer a larger solution like an Intact or a NetSuite, but you have to have the time to train those people to get those in place, right? Those integrations and implementations take time to learn.
Right, and you have to have the expertise on your team. Actually, by the way, I haven't mentioned there's things like FreshBooks, which I saw at Scaling New Heights, and Zoho, which are all great opportunities. But this is where I say, if you're starting a practice, you can pick and choose whatever you want. If you're in practice, you probably have solutions that your clients are adapting. But I'm going to ask you the $1 million question, because I see this as going to trade shows and AI coming into picture. Do you think in the future accountants have to know, and I'll phrase it to set you up for it, they have to know debits and credits? I teach college and I teach debits and credits. I see the future where you don't have to know debits and credits, because we're going from transaction on some kind of tablet computer system directly in to a ledger. You still got no assets, liabilities, equity, and what all that means. But the future is not debits and credits with these transactions. Would you see that AI is pulling everything in? You got to know what it exists of. Do you see that as a future?
I absolutely agree with you. And David, would love to have this conversation with you on the side too. But I totally believe the education is changing, and what we're teaching and what is needed is totally different, right? The debits, credits, our computer systems are are doing the majority of that, right? So we don't need that. What we need are the social skills, the people skills, the advisory skill set. Can you look at something and just analyze what you see? You know, can you turn that around and again, tell your client a story about their business and what they should be thinking about? So I 1000% agree that, and it's going to be interesting because I say this all the time too. It's going to be interesting because, you know, what I was building too is just a really good team of managers and advisors, right? Because the technology was doing that lower level, but then we're going to have this gap here in another, you know, 8 to 10 years because everybody that's coming out of college is just learning in a different realm. And so how are we going to narrow that gap? And I'd be interested in your thoughts on that too, but I see that.
We'll save that for another day. But, you know, one of the things on your website says best practice for client assessment assessments and proposals and pricing model matrix. What do you mean by the pricing model matrix as they get into client advisory services? So when we're talking pricing model matrix, you know, what are you saying to people with that?
With the pricing, you know, so when it comes to pricing too, it's really oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? It's really understanding your value when it comes to the pricing. You know, how are you packaging the value that you're offering to your clients, right? And so we do a lot around pricing, how you're going to separate that. You know, I go in with, you have 10, at a minimum, 10 different categories to bill from a pricing perspective within CAS, right? And you're separating, you're identifying, you're defining your scope so that you don't get just stuck in this like flat monthly fee where you feel like your you know, your margins aren't as great. So it's really defining that scope and then just saying, okay, here's all the things that we're going to bill for throughout the year as well, that, you know, that normally I think a lot of firms would have just tagged right into that monthly fee. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. That's not what the client's expecting either.
You got to make sure there's no scope creep. You give them what they pay for. And are you doing you recommending subscription pricing along with the value pricing?
Both, yes, absolutely, yes. Which is how you keep, that's where you keep your margins, right? Yes.
You keep the money coming in no matter what's happening.
Exactly, right. I mean, I even like, you know, separating out that advisory service from the monthly work and even adding that at year end. I'm like, you know, when you get to the cash flow budgeting for the following year and you want that to be a really good, you know, substantial meeting with the client, hey, you know what, that's value. They are willing to pay you for that, right? Take that, identify that at the beginning of the engagement and say, hey, you know what, at the end of the year, we're going to do this. That's going to be out of scope. We're going to bill for this separately, you know, all the things. And really understanding how that advisory, I think what we try to do from a pricing perspective is think that we have to put all of that advisory within that monthly service fee, and it's not necessarily, right? A lot of it's plug and play, so you can provide a lot of that service without doing too much with the technology, but figure out what that value is to the client too, and what that additional fee is for even just that basic out of the box reports that are already connected to your systems.
I like the fact that you like out of the box reports, because I don't want to have to customize anything, even though I could use Copilot or ChatGPT as we move forward. And you mentioned it's all about AI going forward. But I think you've taken us from soup to nuts. We've talked about some of the best practices. We've talked about a tech stack. You've talked about ongoing training that people got to know things. We've talked about pricing and proposals. And that's what Infinite Advisors is all about, helping other firms set up the right model and get into this space. So what do you got as last words for people about the future of accounting and what you see people should be doing?
Yeah, my last words would be embrace technology, embrace AI. It's not replacing anybody's jobs. It's here and it's helping us provide those advisory services. and so don't be afraid of it. It's something that you can take and digest at your own pace, but just at least embrace it and adopt it.
Well, I thank you for that. And if someone wants to reach out to you to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
Yep, so it's C Triantos at infinite-advisors.com. And my website is infinite-advisors.com. Happy to help.
Easy to find people, and you're happy to help people, and we appreciate you being on here. And we appreciate the dog relaxing in the back now with his head down, quiet and enjoying it. Thank you for joining us. And as always, On the Edge is trying to bring you some of the latest and greatest with some of the brightest in the industry. And we thank you for being here. And with that, Deller, of the Director of Buzz and Brand, can you take us off the air?
Thanks, David.
Well, Della will take us off eventually, so we can go on for another 2 hours, but we are limited at this point in time. So thank you very much for attending, and we'll get a hold of you all. Thank you.
Thank you.